I'm Vin Diesel. I am going to show you the sets of the Chronicles of Riddick. So follow me. 2 mercs up front, 2 mercs in back. Riddick strapped along here in chains, probably the most expensive prisoner. This is New Mecca. This is where it begins. I mean, look at this. Look at the texture, look at the detail. Everything is so overwhelming. All the sets have been, this whole entire set has been used so effectively to create this world. Throughout these streets, we've seen explosions, we've seen New Meccans fight with necromongers, and these huge fights and battles take place in these streets. Now I'm going to show you Crematoria, which is a slam. It's an underground prison that houses criminals that are the harshest of criminals. And once we bust out of that control room, we then have to run all across the crematoria. It gets so hot up here that everything burns to lava. Fun stuff. Okay. I'm now taking you into the Basilica. This is where the final showdown happens. This is the throne for Lord Marshal, a title more so than a name. Very important throne. Remember this throne. Plays a very important part of our story. These statues represent previous Lord Marshals. You'll see necros filling these corridors, filling this mezzanine. It's going to be overflowing with necros. You're going to get a sense like, what the hell is Riddick going to do in a situation like this? I'm going to take you to a place called the Quasi Grotto, which no one ever gets to see. Let me see if anyone's home. A lot of things happen here. These are the shells that the quasi-deads live in. They are able to read thoughts. All of these 5 quasis fold out and start to mind probe Riddick. This set rocks. Home run. I'm freezing. I'm already freezing. Come on, guys. The UV planet is a frost-bitten planet. Riddick has been living there for 5 years. All the craftsmen that came together to create this world, all the detail. But look at this, man. Well, this is the movies. I'm Vin Diesel. Thanks for joining us on this tour of this set of Chronicles of Riddick.
Give me the necros.
We're nasty.
Hot and nasty.
You look at most any film, and the bad guys are the ones that stand out. The villains have the juicy part. So I said, well, why not really juice it up? You could have a whole movie of villains. How good is that?
I guess to explain the necromongers, you have to explain the Underverse. The Underverse is a place where war is constant, where war is the norm.
The necromongers have discovered the portal to the next verse, as they call it. And when you die here, you can be renewed on the other side if you've accepted the necromonger faith.
Convert now or fall forever.
This is the 6th regime of necromongers, and they're coming to the conclusion of eliminating the tribes of man throughout the universe.
It's a necromonger. It's dangerous. It's sci-fi, baby. It's serious. I think that when you're going into the sci-fi realm, you want to do a dark film. You want to keep it as real as possible, and you want everyone to see it.
We're going to find the Riddick, and when we find the Riddick, we're going to kill the Riddick. Do you understand what I'm saying?
We spent a lot of time in this movie characterizing our bad guys, and as a result, you kind of get to like them in a weird way. don't get me wrong. They're bad people, but there's these human touches that make them really special, and they're very unexpected.
You really have a soft spot in our heart. You're really there. So, be a necro today. You too. You'll be as happy as I am.
It's just not enough for me to portray them as a singular group of villains. I want to get in there and see who is whom to each other. I want to know the differences between these guys. I want to see the infighting and the backstabbing and the palace intrigue.
I don't see the Lord Marshal as an evil man. He's not. He's a warrior priest. He's Marcus Aurelius, an inspired, enlightened emperor.
Let's go replenish the ranks.
He was given X territory. His job is to go to Y.
This is the Lord Marshal's big dance number. He trails down with his cape here, just comes right out, sings "Luck Be a Lady Tonight."
And action camera.
Lord Marshal is an extremely confident character, and there are very few actors I've met that are as confident as Colin Pure.
I'm gonna go down and kick some serious Healy on ass. I mean, I'm not. I'm gonna send Vaco, but, you know, the music will swell when I smile gleefully. It's been a long time since I've seen my own blood.
David wrote a wonderful script that I could see instantly off the page. I know exactly what he wants. He's very specific. He doesn't mess around. There is not a phrase extra. So it gives you the impression that he's going to want this biblically reproduced, where in fact nothing could be further from the truth. He'll come to us, and where I think the lines are very, very precise, he'll say, you know what, I've got about 3 alternates. Do you think you could take those on board before we go? Because I just had other ideas, and what you were doing gave me another idea. Have you any other ideas?
Column is sort of a throwback to film actors of old, or to stage actors. I'm here to service the text and help you tell your story as best I can.
Where does he come from? Who are his people? These are the things I need to know.
You've got to believe that in any dark race, from the Nazis on, that there were people in it who got sucked up and who sort of played along at the beginning, and years later they looked back on their life and they said, God, how did I get to this place?
We all began as something else.
The Purifier is a guy like that.
He's the bishop to the king, he's the clerical figure, he's, you know, the initiator, converter, the purifier. Purification meaning taking away pain.
Converts. They learn how one pain can lessen another.
There was a kind of zealot in the Purifier that allowed him to go this far into it, and he became a very austere cleric, if you like, and a master over pain, and went a long way into it. So these are all things that I created in order to make it real for me to live with and play.
Action!
Linus has a tough job. He's got a lot of explaining to do in the movie, and yet he does it with a real clarity, a real dispatch, and he helped me deepen the character, the pathos of the character.
So this is your chance. Your chance to do what no man has ever done.
Linus has one really good ad-lib in the story, and this is him deepening the character for me and for us. The line is, I've done such unspeakable things.
In the name of a faith that was never my own, was never my own.
Vaco is so cool.
Carl Urban is so incredible.
It's all about Vaco.
First of all, he's an amazing actor.
I want to be one.
He will tell you more about a race of people than, you know, a whole room full of writers would have ever thought of. He researches his characters to that degree.
Wait till Chronicles of Riddick 2, Revenge of Vaco.
I was immediately drawn to the dilemma of the character and the interesting dynamics and situations that he was in.
Forgive me.
And 3, 2, 1, action!
I had a lot of good candidates for Vaco. A lot of good actors wanted to play the role. But I was really convinced when he started to go through the makeup tests and he shaved his head down on the side.
Good as gold.
And he started to armor up, and it reminded me of what actors do, real actors do, is they disguise themselves in the role.
Vargo's goals and his aspirations are simply to serve the faith as best as he can in order to achieve his goal of exiting this universe and claiming his rightful position in the Underverse.
Obedience without question. Loyalty till Underverse come.
His personal backstory is that I got sucked up when I was 6 years old, and I've never questioned it up until now at the age of 30. But my Achilles heel is that I married a beautiful woman who has ambition, and like Lady Macbeth before her, has enough ambition for them both.
She's stunningly beautiful. The kind of beauty that makes you want to be on the same set that she's on.
Let me show you the way.
Kind of beauty that makes you knock on her door just to check on her in the morning.
She wants more for her husband because she sees such greatness in him.
You can keep what you kill. That is the necromonger way.
She is a great Machiavellian character, manipulating from behind.
Now! Kill the beast while it's wounded!
I liked her unashamed lust for power, and I mean, it's pretty gross, really, but that seemed like a lot of fun. Watch your step and your face. David, he must be crazy, right?
How coy was she? Watch your step.
I mean, you read this and you just think, oh my goodness, where has this man been? But it's been really fulfilling bringing those characters to life, because one of the great things about being in a kind of futuristic movie is that you've got nothing that you're tied to, so whatever you bring to it can work.
The more you resist them, the greater the damage will be.
This is an opportunity to create almost an entire world. What really exists here that we can tangibly touch, sit on, and feel, and smell, and live in is real. I'm convinced that it adds a valuable layer to an actor's performance. You walk in and you're forced to inhabit the space.
Francisco, what we can do is, you see up there the keystone, do some kind of a crack, not too deep, it's just, you know, the stone just kind of, yeah.
Holger is the person that takes these concepts and creates, you know, real environments out of something that we just talked about.
I really didn't know what to do at the beginning. I knew early drawings and I saw Gothic elements, and I just knew instinctively it's not where I want to go because I've seen it. It is nothing new.
So here I am at the beginning of the quasi-grotto.
What also helped a lot is talking to Mr. Tui. Is he enjoys talking, he enjoys explaining, so that helped me tremendously.
Before, after.
One point it hit me, I said, wait a minute, there is something that I haven't seen in movies. It is very European, the architectural style of Baroque. It happened to fit the necromongers in aesthetics, but also in a certain heaviness.
They're an old civilization, and within the design we see elements that have existed maybe thousands of years before. The basilica is almost like a tomb that carries around the necropolis, which is like a cathedral which has been built possibly thousands of years before.
The most important thing, obviously, was to create a feeling that looks antique, but is not. It reminds you of something that you might have seen, but at the same time it looks strange.
When these guys arrive on the scene, the audience should know that these are the bad guys. They hold a specific style, and we're trying to get a balance between history and science fiction without these guys ending up looking like robots.
The entire movie is created on stage. Everything is built down to the doorknob, which of course is, you know, a slight headache we went through because each piece has to be created A shape has to be developed, details have to be drawn, construction drawing have to be done, and of course everything has to be built and textured and painted.
And then you give the bronze little edges and stuff, nice and necro. So we're talking like what, 45 minutes drying in the sun? Because we're going to shoot it today, that's the good news.
The building of the sets and doing all of the wardrobe was an enormous undertaking. There are a million moving parts when you build sets this size, and you have to fill them up with people, build wardrobe for them, and you can't pull anything out of stock because they just don't have any necro armor anywhere.
I don't drink wine.
The costumes are extraordinary. You have only to take a glance at Tandy Newton as she passes by in this wonderful metropolis-like Art Deco, elegant, sexy, yet frightening thing.
The intention of Dame Vaca was, you just don't know what it is she's wearing. It's just all of one. And I think that we succeeded, truthfully.
What Ellen wanted to do is show you everything and nothing all at once, which says a lot about Dame Vaca. So the costumes are what she calls mockadile. So it's like skin, incredibly tight, even going right down into my fingers, so you don't know whether it's skin, whether it's like, whether, you know, it's stuck on or what it is.
Riddick is now armored up to take on the greatest of battles.
Every major actor was body cast on the film because these are custom-made armor pieces, and everybody's body is different, everybody's head, shoulder width, size, arm length is all different, so everything is customized.
Don't piss with me, man. I might take a souvenir from you, you know what I'm saying?
The secret is to be able to keep it light enough and believable enough so the actors can wear it. Actually, real armor weighs about 75 pounds. Ours weighs about 28 pounds. We get the maneuverability, we can do stunts, and that the actors can wear it for a reasonable amount of time before we have to pull them out of it.
This is the finale of the film. Alexa's character has transformed from her earlier self into a necro.
I love challenges, and I saw this as a remarkable challenge.
So Vin's traveling, so we'll go in and add all our little bits.
It was a huge film with endless possibilities for the makeup department.
I think the quasis are probably our wildest look in the film.
Well, you know, I like long walks in the park. You know, I'm looking for that special someone.
And the quasis, of course, were pieces covering the complete torso all the way down to the waist, because that's actually the only part we see is from the waist up on the quasis.
We met off the internet.
We had 10 makeup artists for 5 quasis who would take an average of 4 hours to do full body prosthetics. Then they were put in their pods and covered in a sheer sort of gauzy black material that was soaked in a wet goo. So a horribly unpleasant experience for the actors actually doing it, but very effective on camera.
We've entered the Riddick.
Ready and fire!
It is a theme of design that carries through all the way into their nicely curved pistols and guns. They do have a Baroque feeling. At the same time, they have details of machinery.
Oh, look, it's making noises. I think it's going to explode.
Their ships, their design also has this grade of ornamentation going down to the fighters, which are designed to look almost like hammers and anvils, you know. If they don't shoot something down, they'll ram it. It's just about force.
Their weapons are gravity-based, which is a whole new idea. So they're not ballistic, they're not laser beams, they move gravity, and that's how their ships move, and that's kind of why they are such a powerful, conquering army.
When you think of these necromongers as having projectile weapons, guns and, you know, missiles and what have you, and the necromongers still choose to use axes and war picks and daggers. There's a reason for that. They can keep the kill if it's done in hand-to-hand combat. One of the most important things was to try to be original and to try to play with a different spin on mythology.
You keep what you kill.
It's so crazy to create a mythology, because you either take modern day or present day and say, okay, well, either they believe in God or they don't believe in God. Or you create a whole new mythology.
You can keep what you kill.
Riddick is up against the might of a new dark mythology and all of the indoctrination that's inherent in that. So it's no small enemy that we give him in this movie.
You keep what you kill.
I just wanted to try to give the audience unexpectedly good characters in a science fiction film.
You keep what you kill. You keep what you kill.
Visual 535, take 2.
If you shoot a romantic comedy or something like that, pretty much what you shot is what you get, and you know what you have like 4 weeks into post-production.
And action.
One of the coolest things about this is you won't know what kind of movie you have until maybe 2 weeks before it opens.
The design of the film and David's view of the worlds meant that no terrestrial location worked as a location to shoot in. So therefore, everything was built. Obviously, there's a limitation to how much can be built by the art department, and so our job was to add extensions to that world. There's a planet in the movie called Crematoria, and David described in the script a planet that swings from 700 degrees centigrade during the day and minus 300 degrees C at night.
If I owned this place in hell, I'd rent this place out and live in hell.
We started talking about what the atmospherics would be on the world, and we came up with a visual effects design where at a certain amount of temperature, the supercharged air would render itself as a wall of fire that travels across the planet's surface. We described this as the VTF, which means visible thermal front.
That's some sunrise.
356, take 6.
And action.
Several passes were shot, live action passes of this miniature set, which we then put together so that we get the correct lighting and atmospheric look. A lot of that was done with matte painting, background extensions, CG extensions, integrating steam elements into that.
Peter Chang was a very enthusiastic leader. He was the one who had the tiger claws, and everything had to be tiger claws coming at us. Everything had to be angrier, and so he kept giving us these great emotions that made our effects characters in the movie.
And cut.
At the end of Crematoria, one of the characters, the Purifier, walks out into the supercharged heat and disintegrates. We started off by shooting a green screen element of the actor performing on set.
We take over the character at a certain point and he becomes a 3D replication of the actor's performance that we can then take and texture all of the burning skin and flesh and clothing.
We describe the burning as steel wool that burns really quickly with lots of highlights within the sort of embers, and they did a fantastic render, lots of really good shaders to convey that decay as the character walks deeper and deeper.
And whose throat is this?
Judi Dench plays Arion in Chronicles of Riddick. She is an air elemental. We talked about how the wind would affect her, and we very much worked along the idea that when the wind velocity gets to a certain speed, that would render the particles of her invisible.
Watch your step.
In one particular scene, David deliberately designed a hatch to open as a spaceship was flying, where there would be huge atmospheric disturbances within the ship, and this would enable us to really play with the particle systems that were worked out for the Arion effect. We knew where she was moving all the time within a scene, and then generated a particle system that was related to velocity. So in other words, whenever we blew a strong wind on her on the set, the computer would be able to read through optical flow the way in which the vectors were moving on the plate, and that would then drive the particle system to render part of the image invisible.
I've got a number of favorites within our work. I think some of the work that we've done in The Hellhound is beautiful.
Here they come!
In the prison, Riddick hides from the Hellhound behind a waterfall, and it was our job to have the CG dog move through the waterfall, finding Vin hiding there.
That took a lot of research and development with fluid flow and fluid simulation to actually make the water hit the dog, interact with the dog with all the scales moving, and then to integrate the animal with that, and how to light the Hellhound, how to create a totally photoreal hound with 8,000 scales that articulate on it and have it look believable.
It's an animal thing.
1,000.
David and I have a very close working relationship. We talk a lot, we draw a lot in terms of describing worlds, and we would have conversations between ourselves that would just spark new ideas.
As you're walking towards Riddick, I do this, and I drop into an OTS for the...
Pulling out the soul.
Right.
Yeah.
David's a very spontaneous director in terms of visual effects, and although you can go to the nth degree to plan something, there's always that spontaneity that happens on set, and it's up to our team to just react to that.
Looks fucking great, Peter.
I'd like to say that we had all this envisioned when we were making Pitch Black 4 or 5 years ago, but that truly isn't the case. Though we learned from our mistakes, and now we are very concerned with understanding where this series of films is going from this point forward.
What Pitch Black is it introduced you to the Riddick character as the anti-hero and a couple of characters who come back in this. But what was interesting about this is that we hadn't really defined the world.
We got a good understanding of who Riddick is. We know what we can expect from him. But where is he from, and what universe does he live in?
We've got many worlds in the Chronicles of Riddick, and that's one of the things that helps separate it from, the Pitch Black. Pitch Black was one world, one situation. But now we break out into almost a multiverse of worlds. And one of those hero worlds that we deal with is called Helion Prime. And when the Necromongers come to town, this is the first planet they want to take out. It is also the location of New Mecca, which was, if you remember from the first Pitch Black, which is where Imam was headed. And that's where we find him, in this sort of Islamic district called New Mecca of this larger place called Helion Prime.
I think one of the things that the character of Riddick symbolizes is good people do bad things, or bad people do good things. Lots of people begin to act out the persona that other people lay on them. I think Riddick is one of those kind of people.
I think Imam is a strong character. I think he's got very strong beliefs, but he's a family man. He's got a very interesting parental feel that comes across.
Imam has always been sort of the spiritual core for us. He represents, probably the good side of religion, because Riddick is a guy who has always struggled with his faith, and his brief encounters with Imam help show him that there may be room in his life for some kind of spirituality.
I believe that most religions stem from a philosophy about a way of life. Here's a man who does that. He lives what he talks about, which is fantastic.
The blade comes off and the bounty comes off.
This is Ariel, an envoy from the elemental race. She means you no harm.
The character Arion was specifically created for Judi Dench.
Action. Arion is a mysterious character for us. She has certain secrets that she lets out only when she needs to let them out. So a very mysterious character. I think very well grounded by how we've cast her, Judi Dench, Dame Judi Dench.
I think she's quite mischievous. You're not sure whether this person is for good or bad, but I think you never should be quite absolutely sure as whose side she's on.
If you cut my throat, I'll not be able to rescind the offer that brought you here.
I'm terribly flattered that somebody of Vin's age, for instance, wants me to be in his picture, David Toohey. I'm very, very flattered.
I have to tell you, for years I've been talking about the fact that the actor I wanted to work with most was Judi Dench.
And acting with Vin Diesel. That's pretty impressive in my family.
Necromonger.
It is the name that will convert or kill every last human life.
was really a long journey, starting with getting the script and imagining that world which David dreamed up.
Okay, let's talk about doors.
Yeah, this is a larger scale detail of the door. We also are building an extension to that corridor.
That'd be good.
It's going to be extended like 10, 12 feet, I believe.
We use details to look almost like, Art Deco. So just a combination, how you put them together on one building and how you put lots of buildings together to create a city feeling, which it is, a street feeling, people doing what they do, they walk, they have shops, they need to eat, they need to drink, they need pottery or what have you, or high-tech equipment. So all this is not new, it is more how you put it together.
We started by referencing a lot of the great Islamic architecture, kind of that Moorish influence, and then we wanted to add a sci-fi element too.
If you look at most of the facades, you will see some elements of older buildings, like for example the facade of Imam's house over here has an old stone facade with old wooden shutters and so on, but then the rest of the house is fairly new.
The work that was put into this production is fantastic. It looks like a street. It looks like a Meccan street.
The costume concepts that I did, I wanted to have it have that old flair with the new.
I, being a novice to this genre, all I knew is that I didn't want it to look like a costume, and the Helions were the nice people. That's kind of the box that I work in. They said, don't think of it as sci-fi. But that was really a good release, because when you don't think of it as sci-fi, you could go to any place you want, so you make it all up.
We're very much interested in showing the audience stuff they haven't seen before. And when it comes to the wild action sequences in this movie, we have an action sequence called The Siege of Helion, where the truly evil guys of the film, the necromongers, are taking siege of this capital city, and we do it all at night.
When the battle starts against the necromongers, I thought it might be cool if we were to see some Helion soldiers that were very decorative, almost like they were the ceremonial guard, and they've called up everybody to fight these guys, but of course nothing works. They get spanked. I worked with Tommy Tomlinson, the prop master, and we kind of did a pass at some of the props. I really enjoyed Helion guns.
Ready and action!
We'll have 100 Meccan soldiers, and we'll have 300 Necro soldiers, all propped, ready to go. Actual firing weapons, we have 100 actual Necro weapons that fire. We have 30 of the Helion rifles that actually fire. Yeah, it's a big prop show. Biggest one I've ever been on, for quantities.
This is probably the hardest gun that I've had to do. And inside of this, there is a tank which I fill up with acetylene gas. And through a series of solenoids, glow plugs, and electronics, it will fire the acetylene at a certain angle to get that perfect little blast.
Very safe, very cold fire. Put your hand right next to it. Very safe for the actors.
We worked on this for months to get that exact position so we can get that effect.
Roll video. Video speed. Action, Josh.
My name is Ian Hunter. We are in charge of doing all the miniature sequences for Chronicles of Riddick. In this case, what we're building is a miniature street of the planet Helion, which is where much of the action takes place. Within the movie, our hero is being chased by the bad guys, who are necromongers, in a ship called the Sarcophagus. Riddick's trying to escape it when we have some missile hits that inflict damage on the ship, causing the ship to nose into the street, and it looks like it's going to take our hero out when, miraculously, of course, it flips over into a building, explodes. We now have a situation where we are actually tilting the camera at the same time the ship is flipping, and we have to actually line the camera up with a figure on the top of the ship, which happens to be the director of the movie. So David Toohey now is going to have himself emblazoned on the top of the spaceship. So what we've done is we've built a miniature street of Helion, and we've built a miniature of the sarcophagus spaceship. We've then built a flying rig, which is over our heads, that pulls the ship along, suspended over the street. We've constructed a pit within the street. We're then putting a very thin breakaway plaster shell on top of that, which represents the paving. We're then going to put individual tiles on top of that shell. So the hope is that when the ship penetrates the street, it'll break the paving, send the tiles flying, send the underlaying dirt up, and then, of course, mechanically, we're going to then flip it and have it fly, do an endo over our camera, and miraculously save the hero.
All right, guys, everybody set. This is picture right now.
Hey, if this thing cuts free, you guys are in harm's way.
Say again. Go!
I've not done a film like this ever, and in this kind of scale. This is one of the avenues that I didn't know existed. For me, I mean, a huge movie.
Being here was the greatest excitement, just being here at all. It was, wonderfully exciting.
It's such an ambitious story that it'll take several films to tell. And that's exciting and
Visita
that's
mi
challenging. And when things are exciting and challenging, they're always fun.
There are precious few anti-heroes to be found in films these days. And that's why we embrace this, and we go forward with that anti-hero character. And that's what helps distinguish this series of films from all those other sort of white bread approaches to science fiction that you see out there. We are not that. We are something that marches to a more chaotic drum.
Right from the very beginning, I remember shooting Pitch Black, and I remember thinking, there is some place to go with this character. The possibilities of exploring Riddick's world just kept haunting me. And I remember telling everybody that Riddick was going to come back.
I knew the trap the other sequels had fallen into, about kind of replaying the same thing over and over again. So I said, I think the key to it is not to do the expected. Don't go back to the same planet. Don't meet the same creatures. Don't even let it be a creature movie. Could we change genres and yet keep the same tone and keep the same characters? I think that was the inspiration for the approach and the metamorphosis between Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick.
Once I was done shooting XXX, I'd look into the mirror and I would see Riddick looking back at me. And that is a pretty good indication that it's time to play Riddick.
Riddick is an interesting character because I think he knows there's something special about him. And I think that he is afraid of this responsibility.
He's not a reluctant hero. He's an anti-hero. I mean, he basically thinks of himself as a convict, a hunted man, a murderer. He thinks there's nothing redeeming about him.
Guns work, water works, rope works, big coats work for first team. Next shot.
As a science fiction guy, David brings a lot of science into it. Crematoria is a superheated volcanic planet with one side, the daylight side, is 700 degrees, and the night side is minus 300 degrees. And he built a huge story point around this slow-moving band that circles the planet.
Crematoria is a planet that Riddick cannot just simply walk off because he's Riddick. He has to fight these elements as the hero of the movie.
The design of Crematoria so much helps the introduction of Riddick and Kira's relationship. And then you gotta get sent to a slam.
One where they tell you you'll never see daylight again? Only there wasn't any doctor here who could shine my eyes, not even for 20 menthol cools. Was there anything you said that was true?
So you have to look now for all these different elements that you want to put together to create a feeling that is not from this world. We are in Crematoria, which is a lava rock, very extreme kind of planet that has our slam prison. So using familiar elements, but trying to put them together in a certain way that you create this really harsh environment.
It's kind of unusual to develop something like this from scratch, where you're dreaming up worlds and universes.
You're lucky you have 6'3".
I'm really enamored of pre-production, that rare halcyon time when anything is possible. And I'm coupled with a great team of concept artists who also think that anything is possible.
On the Crematoria, guys? We started basically planning the movie in Los Angeles. We had a long period of think tanking at the beginning. I was then hiring more and more people, obviously starting with illustrators, just to develop a visual concept.
What's nice about working with Holger Gross, the production designer, is he's a team player. He uses me in that developmental art as well as being the facilitator, more manager guy of an art director.
I'm a big believer in having stuff on the wall, something to look at. So the process was complex, from sketch drawings to Photoshop. So usually I lay out sizes, floor plans, just to feeling sketches so that I can give it to the next person down.
The slam world is kind of a half-buried prison. It's partially covered over by outbursts of lava. So it's about part run-down prison, and the equipment is maintained barely. Holger had ideas that slam was kind of like a Russian gulag. It was in disrepair, a lot of exposed wiring, it's run down. You're almost not sure who's a prisoner and who's a guard. And just kind of going on that, we did some looks of grungy hardware and dilapidated items. The slam sled is kind of this beat up amusement park ride in the middle of the movie. It's really cool.
Four-way split!
The great thing about this world, or about this universe, is that we are introduced to so many different types of environments that have characteristics onto their own that help explain the story in some weird way.
Respect when it's warranted.
David really didn't want a terrestrial look, so we chose to do this all on stage, which means we have these huge sets, which create a real environment for actors to work in.
I can't even tell you how many sets we have. Crematoria is 200 feet wide by over 260, 70 feet long.
A lot of the detail work, we've had this great sculptor, Dan Miller. He did a lot of the molding details. He carved the crematoria volcanic surface using a hot wire because it's all made out of foam. So it's giant sculpting.
When I walked onto the set, it was a wild experience to think of that much real estate being occupied to create this world.
A convict knows when to show a certain respect.
I'm just passing through.
We also have this great ensemble cast, which has really been terrific, and it all starts with Vin's desire to really have great people.
The most rewarding aspect of the Chronicles of Riddick for me was the ability to work across from so many incredible actors.
Nick Chinlin, one of my go-to guys, Nick, DT. I want to be your go-to guy. One of those workable actors who's going to step in, get the job done with not much Sturm und Drang, and yet deliver a really sound performance. That's what I appreciate about Nick. And he'll go there. He'll try things. He'll try things.
I think the first question out of my mouth was, where did all this stuff come from? I mean, the imagination is amazing. Specific details of creatures and worlds and races, and it's just, it goes on and on and on, and it could just keep on going.
Nick Chinlin plays tunes. He's ultimately in it for the money. He could care less about Riddick. He brings a comedic familiarity to the film. It's that kind of merc-convict relationship.
Riddick is very cocky and very quiet, kind of the opposite from Toombs, and so Toombs wants to let him know just exactly who caught him, what he is and where he's from and all that stuff, and he crows about it for a little bit too long.
You know, you're supposed to be some slick shit killer. Now look at you. All back of the bus and shit.
Alexa Davalos is amazing as Kira. I couldn't even call her Alexa. After our first meeting, I referred to her as Kira from then on.
I feel like I've been so blessed with this part because there's so many layers to her. She's got an enormous, almost a fog that doesn't see the joy in things, and yet there are those little tiny moments where you see she's really still a kid, you know, and she's got her quirky moments.
The character as written was very tough, yet she has such a natural sympathy. A lot of the other actresses I read had a lot of a toughness to them, could do that part of it well, but didn't have the other side.
And I never really saw myself in this kind of role prior to this, and have this immense physicality. I never really thought of myself that way, or even really being able to do it. It was a huge challenge for me.
Yeah, Alexa's awesome. She's game to do all her own stunts. She's crazy like that.
She did all the fighting. She did a flip on the wire and kick people and fall down and get roughed up. And when you look at her, she's so pretty and delicate. She's a young girl. She's not that way once we put her in her element there.
The stunt team is just mind-blowing. So phenomenal. Bob Brown and Brad Allen has so much patience with me.
She was chomping at the bit and wanted to fly and wanted to fight. And she'd be there at midnight if we asked her to come and train. She kicked ass in it, to say the least. She did a really good job.
I'm surprised I'm still standing. The name's Kira now, and I'm a new animal.
Get his ass kicked!
Sitting down and talking to these fight coordinators, these incredible fight coordinators. One of the things that I tried to convey was that Riddick is a very grounded fighter. So we created this very savage-like fighting style that I think is sick.
Action! 3, 2, 1.
Tus tráilers. Visita mi canal.
It evolved and evolved and evolved because we were trying to create something new here, even though we had wire-assisted fights and not just a bunch of flipping and twisting for no reason. But we started with Kali, which is a real pretty Filipino knife fighting form, but involving acrobatic stuff, a little bit of the wire work, a little bit of wrestling.
This is one serious knife right here. It's gonna kill a lot of people.
Riddick is a blade specialist. He has spent many years in the confines of a prison that would only allow him a shiv or the resources to make a blade. I'll kill you with my teacup. That's what he's been training with. That's his area of expertise. So seeing a blade in Riddick's hand is a very scary thought. Remember that favorite game of yours?
Who's the better killer?
Let's play.
Vin is quite the athlete. I'm trying to think of a stunt he didn't do on this movie.
Vin is physically so great. When you're doing an action thing, he can actually do the stunt and be staying in character, and we get to see it.
A lot of the fights that you see in the movie are really Vin. We have a fight choreographer as well, but Vin can put the Riddick flourishes on a fight sequence.
And that's a cut, thank you. Cut. Very nice. Reset will go.
So that's what I expect of Vin physically, and he expects of himself.
When Dave and I are talking about the story, it's more fun than anything else because we're just exploring the possibilities.
Vin is a guy that has a lot of ideas, but it's for the better of the movie. Having 2 films under our belts now, I think we've got to the place where we think of each other as brothers.
That dies.
Cool. Very cool. We have more of a fraternal-like relationship than anything else because we challenge each other as much as we can. And we've been bound by the reality of Pitch Black, which was for both of us a kind of an awakening period in our lives where we both take a lot of pride in that, and we wanted to extend that.